Big Dumb Movie is a comedic podcast that often contains obscene language and outlandish commentary. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Big Dumb Movie, where we discuss movies of the big dumb variety. I'm your host, Korey, and I'm here with my co-host, Steve.
Ahoy, mateys.
And Josh.
Woohoo!
Josh, which Josh are you, Josh?
Homer Simpson Josh.
I'm the Josh that keeps being replaced by another Josh. So, I don't know. You tell me. I'm Josh from Spoilers and some other stuff in my life that I have in my life, too. But Spoilers is how you probably know me, right, Korey?
Yeah, that's how I know you, for sure. And probably our listeners. Josh, are you Hi Guy Josh?
I'm not, I don't think, but that's up for interpretation, I guess.
Someone left a comment that it didn't have either Josh on that episode, but someone said, "Where's Hi Guy Josh?"
Other Josh, I think, laughs a little more than me, so I don't know. I laugh a lot, too. I don't know. Who's to say? We're all Hi Joshes these days. I don't know.
Maybe so. Speaking of YouTube comments, it's been a long time since on air we've gone through some really good YouTube comments.
There's a good reason for that.
You're probably right, Steve. It was 9 months ago on the White House Down episode. 9 months. Can you believe it?
Oh, boy, I can't believe we watched White House Down. And I can't believe I could have had a kid between then and now.
I'm still having nightmares about that movie, yeah.
Right?
Fucking Obama.
Oh, God. Anything with Channing Tatum is just guaranteed to not be very good.
At least it's not the Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that one called?
He's in the other White House.
Elysium Down or something?
Elysium.
Whatever it was called, or Absolution. It's a stupid name.
I think that one was a question. White House. Down?
Right. No, thanks. It appears to be under siege.
Down? So YouTube comments. I figured this would be a good opportunity for us to look at some YouTube comments and respond to people. We actually have gotten a lot since then, so I'm going to go through them kind of quick.
Only some of them vehemently racist, I'm sure.
That's up for interpretation, I think. Josh, do you ever get good comments at Spoilers?
Good comments? No.
Anything worth reading? Anything noteworthy?
We've literally never read YouTube comments on the air, I don't think, ever. YouTube was Spoilers podcast last platform, though. I feel like you have much of a heavier hold there.
Yeah, YouTube's our territory. Stay out, bro.
Princess of YouTube.
All right, this is on our Space Jam YouTube episode. 02 says, "Fuck you."
Well, fuck you right back. What am I supposed to... that guy's a repressed furry or something. What the fuck are you so offended by? Space Jam.
Guess what their profile picture is?
Is it the female rabbit from Space Jam?
No.
That's Lola, by the way.
Is it a dog with a giant boner?
Anime girl.
Anime girl, of course. Why don't you go collect your pillow?
All right, Margaret Hill on our Next Karate Kid episode says, "Shut up," with 2 exclamation points.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one. Thanks. You don't want to hear it, you can change. I don't know what to tell you.
Wouldn't that be a good podcast?
I have a theory about some of these bad ones for you, Korey.
They're all bad, but go ahead.
I think that maybe if you stop tagging your YouTube videos with "watch full movie here," people wouldn't click on it expecting to see the full movie on your 2-hour upload.
None of my videos have that. Fuck you.
There is. If you may pick it out, so I won't ruin it in advance. But there is one comment about that specific thing I would love to go over.
Oh, I'm sure we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
You know Pappy from Spoilers. Josh knows him. I know him. He commented on our Howard the Duck video. And you remember you talked about how people can't swim? It doesn't make any sense.
Oh yeah.
He said my mom drowned. She never learned how to swim. I guess she should have just floated and moved her arms. Thanks, Steve. And I'm pretty sure he's lying because he talks about his mom all the time.
Yeah, I don't think that Pappy would post that if it were a genuine comment. I'm going to go ahead and call bullshit with all due respect to your mother. No, I mean, look, it's true, though. You're buoyant. Your body is buoyant. Look, I get it. The problem is people get in the water and they freak out and they start flailing. But, if you could just keep yourself calm and, sure in your legs, you'll stay up in the water. Still doesn't make any sense to me.
He also said that he would like to debate you on any film-related topic.
I'm down. I'll let him pick the topic.
Star Wars. Star Wars.
Right?
Star Wars sequels.
Okay.
That's the place to
But
go.
I'm not going to be nice.
I can't believe Nurse Malcolm came up on your podcast. That's terrific.
Yeah. R.I.P. So Johnny Mnemonic Podcast, Mark Varto We Armin says spinal fluid LSD the best,
Yes.
which I'm sure Pappy would also agree with. He's dropped a lot of acid in his life, as I'm going to probably bring up a lot because that came out when we did another podcast.
Nice.
I think he loves it when you talk about that.
Ugh.
All right, Terminator 2 episode, Nightwolf 88 says, actually not all police cruisers have dividers. Some just have no caging, usually for the officers to ride in the back or for cops that are only pursuit officers and not arrest officers.
Yeah, I think he's right about that. And that's actually, I'd agree, is probably a good observational point. Like, perhaps that particular vehicle wasn't meant to be used to detain anyone. I'll concede that one. He could be right about that.
Josh, here's one I'd like you to respond to on our behalf. This is on our Lost World Jurassic Park episode.
Okay.
Babita Patel says, please upload full movie in Hindi.
That's the one. That's the one.
Well, as long as you can, like, assure the listener that you're not purposely tagging these videos to be seen as, like, full movie uploads, I don't think that's your fault, Korey.
Like, I'm willing to guess maybe there's a little bit of a culture gap there, but sir, we don't upload whole movies to our channel, please. Least of all in Hindi. I don't speak Hindi.
After Earth. So on the After Earth video, someone commented something that is not English. I can't see the lettering. So I did a little bit of research and I found it's Arabic.
All right.
They left an emoji. They left like the nerd emoji, like with glasses. And then what they said was just the word liar.
I don't know how to respond to that.
I don't know either.
Could you be more specific, sir? Edit that comment so we can address it later.
Another person on the same video, Masood Shah, says, fake video, fake channel, and video is spelled wrong.
Yeah, that one I don't really get. I mean, first of all, what's a fake video? It's not a doctored video. We didn't make it look like one of us was flying or shooting lightning bolts out of our eyes. I mean, secondly, the video exists. That's empirically true. So we've already covered that half of the sentiment. I mean, secondly, how could it be a fake? You can't have a fake channel full of actual content. So that's 2 for 2.
We win, bitch.
Yeah, right?
You conceded that last point, but this one you will not concede.
No, definitely not. We are real, damn it.
The next Karate Kid, Pris DaCosta, says, dumb channel. To which I reply, big dumb movie channel.
Exactly.
Ooh, there you go.
Look, miss, I don't know if you failed to get it, but it's supposed to be a little dumb.
All right, Rick Richards on the Three Ninjas Kick Back episode, which me and Josh did
Yeah, I
together.
wasn't on that one.
He says, listening to this podcast, looking at Tum Tum's masked face, really makes me want Three Ninjas Funko Pops. The 3 kids with their masks on would be dope, in my opinion. Great podcast. Looking forward to Knuckle Up. That's a very, very nice comment. Those are rare.
That's a real comment.
You know what? I will agree with him. Some Funko figures of the 3 kids would probably be pretty amusing.
Especially for millennials like us. Like,
Yeah.
we'd see that and be like, oh, 3 ninjas.
Right.
It's so easy to fucking get money out of us from nostalgia.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. You remind anyone roughly between like 30 and 40 of being a kid, and they're like, just take my fucking money.
Yeah, exactly. Times are hard. Husan Bahami on the Con Air episode left the middle finger emoji as a comment.
On which one was that? For which episode?
Con Air.
Okay.
And it got 1 thumbs up. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, which part are you objecting to? I just don't get it.
All right. Baby's Day Out podcast. Green Parrot says, stupid asshole bastard. Remove your stupid video and upload the movie.
Oh, God, there it is. There, I told you.
Right?
That's the center of all this anger. Is for some reason they read Big Dumb Movie Podcast, episode 51, Angels in the Outfield, and they think it's a full movie upload. Like, what? Why?
This is why I usually believe in not giving people a forum to talk.
After Earth, Bonnie Boweman says, channel Thai and TAI. And I did a little bit of research and I couldn't find what Thai means, but in Urban Dictionary, like it's one of the definitions is like slang for cool. So I'm going to assume that's a compliment.
Okay.
On the Hocus Pocus episode, it's your boy Kyle 420 says gay.
You know, I'd like you to go simmer on your username, kiddo.
We did the Flintstones episode. Josh, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you can respond to Oliver Drakes, who says sheet, S-H-E-E-T, which, you know, like shit.
She.
Wait, sheet just?
Just
That's
that
it?
word, yeah.
Oh,
Sheet, like shit.
Like that character on The Wire.
Right. Man, this is mind-numbing listening to all these YouTube comments.
All right, I'm going to get through a couple more. Someone on the Baby's Day episode just said, really? Just talking. Which is true. It's really what it is. If
It's
you
a
think about
factual statement.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you usually have clips from the movie in your podcast, too.
Yeah.
That's not talking. You have music. That's not talking.
Right?
We got a really nice comment on our Terminator Dark Fate podcast.
On the Dark Fate podcast.
Yeah, from Iceman Chris. This one's really nice. I am going to read it off. He says, hey guys, I'm a huge fan. I've been binging your videos every day while I'm at work. I'm currently on this video, but can't wait to hear all of the future podcast videos. Apparently, I'm your 800th subscriber as well, which I think is a good number. But if I can recommend a movie to put in the hat or be an actual episode, my vote would be Only the Strong, 1993.
Ooh.
Which is a childhood movie of me and my 5 brothers. But I know that it hasn't aged well. I'm sure it's perfect for you guys to point out its flaws, but keep up the great work and wish nothing but success for you guys. One last note, I don't know if it's me, but Steve's voice sounds like the bad guy from the Colin Farrell movie Phone Booth. No disrespect, Steve.
I've never heard that one before. I don't take that as a point of disrespect.
I'm pretty sure that's Kiefer Sutherland, right?
It is Kiefer Sutherland. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm happy to sound a little like Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a nice comment. It's a good suggestion. I think we should add Only the Strong to our list.
Is there a hat anymore, though?
Nope, just kind of pull stuff out of my ass. So now there's just the ass.
I gotta say, as a listener, Korey, people love the hat.
They do? All right. Maybe it's time to bring it back.
Add some suspense.
The last comment I'm going to read is on our test episode, Spider-Man 3. That was just us getting a feel for trying to do a podcast. Astro Flick says, yes, their voices aren't annoying. Now, I clicked on his channel, and I watched a video, and I sent it to you guys. It's just one I happened to randomly click. Do you think this is a fair comment?
No, your stop motion Lego shit was really, really this is like a reject from a Star Wars fan film festival.
Yo, guys, that's not safe at all. I might have to add some railing so if you accidentally get stabbed, you won't just fall off.
What are you, 8 years old? Don't comment on my stuff. You don't like it, don't listen.
You want to start a war? You got it, bitch.
Yeah, right?
Fuck you, Astro Flick.
Right?
I thought that could have been actually a decent segment in Robot Chicken, just he didn't have the production value.
Dude,
I don't know.
Oh my god, yes, my initial comment, I'm actually going to edit it a little, but my initial comment to Korey was basically to say that this was a bad Robot Chicken ripoff.
Bro, you can fade down your music so we don't hear that click every single time you stop a line. Sorry, that's really getting into the production value of it, but it's got 48 views, guys.
And at least 5 of them are from us. I watched it twice. You guys watched it.
Right?
3 or 4 times, I'd say.
If anyone wants to watch a really good one, I do not know the person who owns this channel. If he doesn't want me talking about it, hopefully he'll let me know. But there's a fan video. It's really just cut footage from episode 4 mingled with some of the prequel footage. It's called Obi-Wan Has PTSD. It's not a joke. It's a good one. That's my favorite Star Wars fan bit right now.
It's when he's talking to Luke, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then it enters spaces where it's supposed to be flashbacks.
Yeah. It's a really good video, actually. There's some good Star Wars fan stuff.
My brothers just shared that with me this week. That's crazy.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that and the SC-38 Reimagined are my 2 favorite fan things on YouTube for Star Wars right now.
Yeah, I was moments away from ripping that video from YouTube and putting it on my Instagram, actually.
Nice.
I still might. Yeah, that's a really good one.
It is.
Well, we're here to talk about Sidekicks.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, thank you for anyone that listens on YouTube. If you're listening, leave us a nice comment and give us a thumbs up. If you want
nice
to.
to nice people.
And by the way, Astral Flick, no beef. I'm just kidding. You can talk shit. It's fine. I kind of like doing this comment stuff.
I'm beefing.
Steve takes it very seriously, though, so just be warned. He will look you up and dox you.
Right. Shit.
Guys, what's your favorite Karate Kid movie?
Like from the originals?
Of the Karate Kid movies.
Like Jaden Smith?
Yeah, the Jaden Smith one.
Yeah.
That's actually my favorite. I've defended it before on this podcast. I do really like the Jaden Smith Karate Kid. I'm sorry.
God damn
It's
it,
not-
Korey.
It's a good movie. It's a well-made film. I'm sorry. The first one is so fucking cheesy, dude.
I mean, that's my favorite. And it's just because I liked it when I was a kid. I mean, I don't like any of these movies anymore, really.
I still kind of like the original 3. I mean, not in the same way, but yeah, I don't know. Which is it, 2 or 3 where they go to Okinawa?
2.
2. I think 2 might be my favorite. It's either 2 or 3. I know a lot of people don't like 3, but the I can't remember the actor's name now. The Terry Silver character in 3 was fantastic. Those two guys were everything. Like, if you're making a serious attempt at the Joe Piscopo character from this movie, from Sidekicks, that's what you end up with, is Terry Silver. They did such a good job with that character. He's such an asshole.
He is a psychopath.
He is. He's a total psychopath, but he was the perfect counterpiece to Miyagi.
This is also a Karate Kid movie in my head canon.
It is. It is. It's a B ripoff of Karate Kid movies with a little bit of blood sport at the end when they're doing the block breaking.
What is it called in Bloodsport where you have to break the bottom brick?
Oh yeah, I don't remember what they call it, but I remember you can only crack the one at the very, very bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember what they call it in the movie.
Anyway, Sidekicks is a 1992 film, I think. I saw some varying years online into when this came out. But you saw it in theaters, right, Steve?
I saw it in theaters. 92 sounds right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it a good experience for you?
I was 9. I was super into martial arts. I didn't love the theater loving it, but I wouldn't say it was. I would say it was a generally good experience for me at 9. I thought it was more or less enjoyable. It didn't age very well for me, though. Yeah.
Josh, did you see this movie as a kid, or is it your first time viewing it for Big Dumb Movie?
It's a first time viewer for me.
Really?
And I got to be honest, I don't remember this at all.
Wow.
At all. So that's really strange because I feel like I knew everything in this movie, but I've definitely never seen it. But it's so like 80s, honestly. I know it's 1992, but like we're talking about Karate Kid. And I think like some of the production stuff is so bad for 1982. It seems like it should be a bad 80s movie.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, it's weird. It definitely felt like a high budget B movie. You know what I mean? Like, it had a lot of money by B movie standards, but wasn't quite an A-list production. And it definitely felt like it embodied a lot of the most shallow parts of stuff from the mid and late 80s without any of the more positively nostalgic parts.
I can get behind that, absolutely. One of the things that makes it feel of its time is the fact that Winnie Cooper is in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was just about the end for her because Wonder Years was off the air or almost off the air by 92. And then she went off and did other things. She's brilliant. I'm not talking shit about her, but this was about the end of her really being an active actor at that point in her career anyway.
Yeah.
She's
And then
come back since.
she has.
I could see how being in this movie might turn her off to acting a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
The character she plays, it's not great.
No, I mean, she's probably the thinnest and most shallow of all of them, unfortunately.
What are you talking about? She has the best arc in the whole movie.
There are arcs in this movie?
We could talk about Sidekicks. We don't necessarily have to go in order, but we can start at the beginning and then we can kind of go anywhere you guys want from there.
Yeah.
This is the kind of movie where you can just talk about things. Doesn't necessarily have to be plot driven for our take on it.
No. So, okay, I do want to touch on a little sort of pre-production moment here then.
Oh, I love this. Go ahead.
Right? So there was this dude, Mattress Mac Mickenvale, and he was a furniture outlet owner, and he was very, very successful. And he ran these outlet stores in Texas, and he and Chuck Norris had partnered to do a series of television commercials specific to networks in Texas that were all about keeping school kids off of drugs. They were called Kick Drugs Out of Schools.
So it's like a DARE program kind of thing?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, sort of a similar to DARE, but they were in TV commercial forms. And Norris apparently suggested something roughly like this idea or this idea to Mickenvale and said, you should produce this movie. I think it would make money. And Mickenvale apparently said, I'll commit them. Well, I've heard two different versions of the story. One version of the story said the producer came back, the Mickenvale came back and said, I'll produce the movie if you star in it, because that's how we can market it, is you being in it. I've also heard that he agreed to produce it anyway, and that when they eventually decided, in quotations, this was obviously all nepotism, when they decided to let Chuck Norris's brother Aaron be the director of the film, that Chuck agreed to be in it as a favor to his brother. But one way or another, they knew that if this movie was going to make any money, they had to have Chuck Norris in it. But yeah, so anyway, this movie was the brainchild of Chuck Norris and a guy who owned furniture stores. And it was produced by the guy who owned the furniture stores.
Directed by Chuck Norris's brother.
Directed by Chuck Norris's brother, who is also a stuntman. He actually did some stunt work in Ant-Man, oddly enough.
Yeah, I looked up his IMDb. I saw that. He has a huge resume for stunt stuff.
Yeah, and a few directorial credits. Not surprisingly, a lot of his resume is either stunt work or directorial work on Chuck Norris features.
Sure.
So, yeah.
You gotta throw your brother a bone, right?
Right? Chuck Norris even got his son into the movie. His son's one of the bikers in one scene.
Oh, that's the best scene in the whole movie.
Right?
Well, can we just talk about the actual directing style? Because I don't think it's very good.
Yeah, is there one?
The tone is so crazy. It goes from like bombastic to kind of like serious, like familial relationship stuff in not a good way. Like some movies can balance that, but for some reason, this one it makes all the stuff they're trying to take seriously just come off terribly. You know what I mean?
It felt like they wrote it for a 30-minute TV slot and then realized they needed to pad it out for an hour and a half, to me. I think, to me, that's why it seemed like some of that stuff was so, like, they keep going back and forth and there was no real character development. Everything felt very compressed. It was almost like they'd written it to be another one of those, like an after-school special. And then they were like, oh shit, this has got to be 90 minutes long.
It stars Jonathan Brandis, who is no longer with us. And I want to say right off the bat, I do like Jonathan Brandis a lot. I grew up on this movie. I grew up on the It miniseries. And Neverending Story 2 is a movie I happened to see before the first Neverending Story, which I liked a lot as a kid, even though it's awful. So no disrespect to Jonathan Brandis. He's cool. I like him. Right, Josh?
Okay, I would stick up for him in this movie too, because I think they're asking this dude to do so much in this film, and most of it, especially from the perspective of a kid, it comes across pretty well. Like, he has to pretend he has asthma, but he can also like come back and beat up the main jock later, and he's got to be like goofy and funny, and he's got to like be crying at one point because Winnie Cooper told him to go home or whatever. Like, I think like any actor's range would be tested in this sort of situation. And how old was he at the time of filming? Like, that's probably just too much to put on somebody who's like a teenager.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm being mean. I never got the impression he was a particularly deep actor, but I did like him. And I would agree in the sense that regardless, there was not a lot here for any of them to work with.
He's got that 90s look, don't he?
He does. He definitely has that 90s look. I mean, and it's very telling that, like, his first work as a child was as a model. And then his first acting work after modeling was on a soap opera. So, I mean, that look really obviously worked for him. And then he happened to be talented enough to pull off at least some acting in addition. But yeah, it's a sad story. I mean, and this was a good point for him in time, because I think it was either this year or the year after that he ended up on Sequest, the TV show. And that was a big deal for the 3 years it was on before that show really fucking imploded. That was a bad deal for everyone involved. Even Roy Scheider, before the show was even over in interviews, Roy Scheider was already talking about how they destroyed the show and messed it up and made it something it wasn't supposed to be, and blah, blah, blah. And then my favorite, I know this is a really off tangent note, but my favorite I want to mention of, because I think you'll like this. Roy Scheider walked off that show at some point. They replaced him with Michael Ironside. It took months worth of negotiations to get Ironside to agree to even be on the show. One of the show's quote-unquote main characters was a dolphin called Darwin that could speak using a mechanical computerized apparatus.
That sounds familiar.
Right? When Ironside was in contractual negotiations and were trying to get him onto the show, one of his specific points was, if you want me to be on the show, I am never talking to the dolphin. The dolphin and I cannot interact at all. I don't want to be involved with it.
I've seen Johnny Mnemonic. I know where this leads.
Right? You know, Mnemonic was later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a year and a half, not by much, but it was later. But yeah, and then his career kind of went south and he decided to take his own life. It's very sad.
Yeah, so without getting I definitely don't want to get morbid like Brett would, or like get weird. But
shout out to Brett.
Was he depressed like directly related to his career? Is that the impression you get, Steve?
Yeah, I've read a bit about this and heard some stories. I've heard that he was struggling with a little bit of depression anyway, and then there was some career issues. Sequest was very difficult, a very difficult production. They knew the show was going downhill quickly. He was not getting a lot of offers otherwise. His last couple of projects were mostly really B productions. One of them, I think, was a movie about high school girls that was based on a book. It was a very, very, very low budget production. He'd gotten a fairly somewhat substantial role in a Bruce Willis movie called Hearts War about World War II POWs. But during the post-production process, his role was edited down to something like 2 minutes, where he thought he would be in the film for like close to an hour. And he just combined with whatever depression he was already committing or feeling, he I guess couldn't deal with it. Somebody found him hanging in the hallway outside his apartment, and yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's really too bad. Just one last note that I have about him is that he was actually on the Wonder Years. So
yes,
like the year before this came out. So like him and Danica McKellar may have, been buds or something.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that ends up happening. I always wondered, it's another real big tangent, but Christopher Lloyd and Danny DeVito had both appeared together in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And just a few years later on, they both ended up being recurring characters. Danny DeVito especially was a regular character on a television show called Taxi. And I always wondered whether the two of them ended up together on the show because they knew each other from the movie.
Taxi was good.
Taxi was a good show.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Weird intro, but good.
Yes.
It's like this weird, like depressing, like 70s show intros, like MASH and shit.
Yeah. Boy, the aesthetic of the 70s is not one I'm typically very fond of.
Yeah, same. Not really my jam. But Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about Sidekicks, maybe the beginning portion of it to introduce what the premise is, because you kind of see what it is right away.
Yeah. And this is where the Ninja Turtles analogies start coming into play for me immediately. They're in like ancient Asia somewhere, and there's a bunch of ninjas, and like there's a character played by Julia Nixon, and this is one of the set pieces where she is the damsel in distress, and she's like tied up, and this guy's about to come stab her with his katana and like publicly sacrifice her or something, and all of a sudden 2 ninjas in white come in, and this is like basically exactly what a Ninja Turtles fight would be. So I, like the 12-year-old 10-year-old self inside of me, really love this part, because I think it was like literally, you guys, I think they wanted this to have like the fun and zest of a Ninja Turtles fight, and like without the actual violence or blood as is shown time and time again in the movie.
Yeah, except it doesn't have quite the one-liners or like the music. I mean, it does have Silvestri, but
it is
the one-liner is just that it's Chuck Norris at the end every time. It's like
that's the joke.
Yeah, basically.
Well, it's that old cliche where it's like there's 130 of these other ninjas, but for some reason they only attack Norris's character one at a time. Yeah. Like, why would you not just mob him?
And they do this, I think, twice. But there's the moment where, well, because you see the 2 ninjas in white, the 2 good ones, fighting all the ninjas in black, the bad ones, where they like lock arms, and then they do like this, like the roundhouse kick. And they like keep kicking, and their foot doesn't touch the ground, and they're like spinning, and the guys keep coming forward and getting kicked. Like, it's like, I guess supposed to be like there's no defense for this technique or something.
Yeah, you just wait. Gets kicked, right?
Yeah.
I mean, God forbid one of the 200 guys with a sword just sticks his sword in there. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
Just hack his leg.
Right?
The directions for the choreography of this are just go put your face on their feet.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
over
make
and
sure
over
you get
again.
kicked.
There's some sweet guitar riffs in there. I mentioned Silvestri did the score. He had a good run. He did
What a waste.
3 movies in a row. Sidekicks, Cop and a Half, and then Super Mario Brothers.
I don't want to get too specific, but my dad was lifelong friends with someone who was intimately involved with the production of Cop and a Half, and it's one of his big career regrets.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude, one of my childhood favorite movies. We'll have to do a podcast on Cop and a Half someday. I'd love to hear more about that.
Right.
There's a music track that plays while they're fighting here that is also just seems lifted from Ninja Turtles, and it is like it's like a early crappy synth beat, and then there's like guitar licks that are like damn.
Yeah, it really is like a soundtrack written for a Showtime production from 1988. It's just not good.
We talked about when they take off the masks and Chuck Norris is one of the ninjas, but then the other one is Barry.
Of course.
Barry Grabowski, who's Jonathan Brandis. It turns out they're like sidekicks, but then Barry like snaps into reality and
Well, sort of. He as he's coming out of his fantasy, it becomes obvious that he's sitting in the middle of a classroom and he's talking to himself out loud in his fantasy as if he were speaking to Chuck Norris, and he's giving this whole speech about whenever you need me, I'm there. You just call. I'll come back you up.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for helping me out again.
That's all right, Chuck. That's what sidekicks are for. But wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, all you gotta do is ask, Chuck.
And it's like, yo, this dude's schizophrenic.
no, it's asthma.
No, good. It's just asthma that causes people to do that. Don't worry about it. He definitely.
He's a dreamer.
He's a dreamer. He definitely shouldn't be taken to see a psychiatrist. Like, I mean, come on, every kid daydreams, but if your kid has a regular habit of being so into their fantasies during the day in class that they're talking to themselves out loud without knowing it, you need a doctor. You need a doctor.
He has an inhaler.
Oh, okay, that's all you need. The inhaler will fix it.
No, you need a stern talking to.
Psychiatric problems are frequently fixed with an inhaler.
Depends what's in the inhaler.
Right? Well, look, depending on what's in the inhaler, you might make the psychiatric problem worse.
The funny thing to me is that everyone is like waiting for him to finish his fantasy so they could just fucking jump him. Like they just start clowning him. Like,
But everyone's been sitting there listening to him talk to himself out loud for the last however many minutes. Nobody thought to wake him up.
Sure thing, Chucky Poo, old pal. Any old time, old buddy.
Yeah, very wary, you geek. What a dork.
he just gets fucking roasted.
Right? As he should, frankly.
I love how the roasting in this movie is very reminiscent of like Adam Sandler movies. Loser. It's so like blatant and just
Oh,
in
yes, the
your face.
high point for the writing craft in Adam Sandler film.
I think at the end the enemy says like, "Good luck on the next one, puke face," or something like that. It's like, wow.
Dude, Cellini does say that. I put it in my notes because I thought it was funny. Puke
Cellini.
face.
God damn.
So, Steve, why don't you tell us, like, what does this lead to? Because we can see that Barry's a disturbed individual, and
Deeply.
he is obsessed with Chuck Norris. We find out after that's a common thing. They all have Chuck Norris involved in his daydreams, his fantasies.
They all have Chuck Norris involved. It's like, okay, you know, the teenager with asthma who constantly gets picked on wants to be the hero in a fantasy, but the one thing I always found was a little strange about this was that his love interest in the movie is the Danica McKellar character, who's his classmate. It makes sense. She's cute. But all of his rescue fantasies involve this teacher. So it's like, who are you really interested in? It sounds like he's in love with the teacher.
Until the end,
Oh, yeah,
where he's finally able to lucid dream.
Right.
And he inserts her in the fantasy.
Right, that's true. He does eventually include her, but it really kind of seems like he's sort of sexually obsessed with his teacher.
With his dad's love interest. Let's just be straight up about it.
Potentially.
Essentially, yeah.
I mean,
She touched his boob. It's official. She got to second base.
Wait, isn't that how you get a girl pregnant?
Bo Bridges is now pregnant.
Right. Oh.
Bo Bridges plays the father. And his whole character is that, like, he's a nerd. He's a nerd dad, right?
He's a programmer. They make one brief reference to.
My dad's a computer programmer from Pittsburgh. Make him mad, he just punches the keyboard harder.
And they established that, like, his wife, the kid's mother, has been dead for about a decade, and that they relocated to Texas from Pittsburgh. They're really unspecific about why, other than a sort of very thin implication that it was because his father took a job in Texas. And he's got asthma. He gets picked on. He's got no friends. He comments at one point that no one likes him. He doesn't actually seem like a bad kid for the most part, but aside from this weird lucid dreaming thing, he really should go see a doctor about.
And being obsessed with Chuck Norris is a weird personality quirk, is it not?
Yeah.
Because who really likes Chuck Norris?
He's from Texas. He's a Texas boy.
He's a Texas boy. But no, I mean, you're right. They sort of write him as being like a 17-year-old, 6-year-ld, where he still has an imaginary friend, and the imaginary friend is Chuck Norris. And his father keeps making excuses for it. It's like, oh, he's just a kid, and he's not real popular or whatever. It's like, dude, your teenage son, your 17, 18-year-old son is like spending all his time fantasizing about going on adventures with Chuck Norris.
I've had talks with him about the daydreams. He's just never been a physical kid. And there's nothing wrong with that. Einstein, Gandhi, Gershwin, there's nothing wrong with these people. My son has asthma. He's made up this world where he can be the star athlete, the quarterback, he can be...
Chuck Norris?
Yeah. He says they're sidekicks, that they do things together.
Something's wrong with this. I don't even mean to pick on him, but something's wrong with this. Like, your kid is not continued developing. He's like an 8-year-old. So something probably needs to happen here.
I agree. So what they do, they decide, all right, we're going to take you to Cobra Kai Dojo.
Right, yeah, we're going to take you to the equivalent of Cobra Kai, a really piss poor knockoff of Cobra Kai. It's worth mentioning most of this movie is a really bad knockoff of the first Karate Kid.
So bad.
To the point where the guy who ends up becoming his teacher, who went by the name Mako, who I think is like the best part of this movie, actually auditioned for the part of Mr. Miyagi and got offered the part of Mr. Miyagi and ended up having to back out because he played a main character in the 2 Conan movies that Schwarzenegger was in. And he got an offer to reprise his role in the sequel at the same time they offered him this. And he and his agent, I guess, decided it would be a better idea to be in the Conan movie instead. No, I'm sorry. When they offered him Karate Kid, he went and decided to be in the Conan movie instead.
Right.
But yeah, this dude was almost actually Mr. Miyagi and then ends up basically playing a bad knockoff of Mr. Miyagi in this movie. He was also in the 3rd Highlander film and in RoboCop 3. He's got a real weird resume, but I always liked him. He's cool.
Oh, RoboCop 3. So that means we'll talk more about him eventually.
We will talk more about him, and I don't want to get the number mixed up. He's one of only 8 Asian descended actors to be nominated for an Academy Award in an acting category. And funnily enough, one of the other 8 was Pat Morita for the first Karate Kid. So, yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, so they take him to this Cobra Kai-esque dojo, and the sensei turns out to be a ridiculous character played by Joe Piscopo, who was an SNL alum. He'd been on SNL in the early and mid-'80s. He'd originally been really skinny, and at some point in the mid or late 80s, he decided, for whatever reason, that he just wanted to get buff. So he got buff.
He's legit jacked in this movie. He's oiled and he looks good. Right?
No, that's one thing I got to give Joe Piscopo credit for. I always thought he was funny anyway, but he really went and did it. There was no airbrushing. There were no bodysuits. Like when he was like, no, I feel like being buff, he went and got buff. So
do you feel like Danny McBride takes a lot from Piscopo? I was feeling that big time in this movie.
I do, actually. In fact, I could see them remaking this with Danny McBride playing the equivalent part, except McBride wouldn't lose any weight. In fact, he'd probably gain weight and play it with a huge belly.
But he'd still take his clothes off at the end, and maybe even more clothes.
Oh, absolutely. He'd probably do a scene in a Speedo with nothing but the Speedo and sunglasses. It would basically be Kenny Powers, but as a sensei.
We don't allow shoes on the mat here, mister.
I love his mouth
That's an obnoxious scene. They walk in and the teacher's in the middle of teaching a class and Beau Bridges' character's just like, oh, I'm just going to let him know we're here. And he walks onto the mat in the middle of the class. It's like, even if you didn't know the shoe rule, you can see he's in the middle of teaching a class. Could you not just wait 10 minutes?
Right, exactly. Like, what is he doing?
Right? What's your problem? He's busy. Just sit down.
So it's no wonder Joe Piscopo is like in a pissy mood when like they're actually talking to him about Barry joining.
So you want to learn karate, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah? You mean yes, sir. Don't you, Sonny?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, sir.
Now, your father here tells me all you think about is this art, this craft that has taken me years to master. Could you wheeze a little quieter, kid? I'm trying to talk here.
Yeah, the character, Piscopo's character, obviously supposed to be kind of a jackass, but at the same time, in that moment, you're right. It's like, you're being obnoxious. What are you doing? Don't do that. You walk into the middle of my class, you're wearing shoes.
You must be pretty good to win all this stuff.
Well, I don't like to brag or anything.
Yeah, I bet you're almost as good as Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris? Chuck Norris? He doesn't compete anymore, kid. And one of the main reasons he doesn't is me.
Okay, let's,
Yeah.
He doesn't compete because I would kick his ass.
Let's go, son. Come on.
Kick his ass.
Got you the first time.
Find another place. I mean, this isn't all there is.
You know, kid, that's the first smart thing you've said all day. This isn't all there is. It's just the best there is.
You know, karate is a sport of discipline and restraint and style. One that builds respect.
You believe in the Easter Bunny too, kid?
He also has a severe grudge against Chuck Norris for some
Totally
reason.
unexplained, yeah. I think maybe an inferiority complex is what it's supposed to come off as.
But Chuck Norris kind of validates him that he at least knew him from back in the day because he's like, man, that guy hasn't changed, which is a sick burn in the movie. But at the same time, he's like, they did know each other in the same
apparently they're
circles.
acquainted.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of back and forth about how good Norris really was as a martial artist. He was successful in some martial arts tournaments, but he also lost a handful of the early ones he was in. And there's a lot of argument as to whether or not the story is true. There's a really prevalent story that when he was working on Way of the Dragon, which was the first real movie he got cast in, that there was an on-set but off-camera moment where he and Bruce Lee actually got into it for real.
No way.
Yeah, and some people contend that if the fight hadn't been broken up, that Norris would have been able to beat up Lee, and I've never believed that was true.
I wonder if that's like partially some inspiration toward Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, maybe?
Yeah, I think it is. And like, look, Lee's wife and daughter came out after Once Upon a Time and said that wasn't really him as a real person. And even Tarantino said, well, of course, the whole movie's a satire. I pumped everybody up. It wasn't meant to be a completely, but Tarantino also said, and I believe it based on what I've seen and read, Tarantino swears to God that he read a lot of books and talked to a lot of people who had worked with Lee and heard a lot of stories. I mean, if anyone's going to be able to get inside information on what it was like to work with a person on set, it's Tarantino.
For sure.
You know, I mean, it's not like this guy doesn't have access to the right people. And he swears to God that there were a lot of stories about Lee not really being an asshole, but definitely being arrogant and pompous and kind of a shit talker. And
I've like heard some things about that through like videos and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see that moment in Once Upon a Time being a somewhat exaggerated reality. Absolutely.
Josh, Steve was talking about Mako, who plays Mr. Lee. Do you have any thoughts on his intro? He gets a pretty good intro in the movie.
Is his intro when he beats up all the motorcycle dudes?
No, the smoking.
I hate that scene.
The smoking part. We'll talk about that.
Okay, yeah. So the first time you see him, he's like just... where is he from, Korey?
Where is he from, Steve?
They never say. I mean, his last name is Chen, which is Chinese. But I'm pretty sure in that moment with the cigar, he speaks Japanese to the other man who was smoking. So it's like, what nationality is he supposed
He's
to be?
He's multilingual, whatever.
He's from the homeland.
That's part of my problem is like that even in this movie, it's just like, they're all Asian. You know, I mean, I guess that's, I mean, they're supposed to be, in the one hand, well, you know what, let Josh talk and then I'll go over that.
Well, let's get into it because his intro is a white dude saying, hey, you insert terrible name for Chinese people here.
Yeah.
Tell that other terrible name for Chinese people to put that cigar out.
May I help you?
You can help everybody in this place. Tell that chink to douse that cigar. This is a public area. He's not supposed to be smoking that in here.
Yes, of course, you're right. Since we're all so similar, though, would you mind telling me which particular chink you're referring to?
The geezer in front of you, Charlie.
And like,
I don't feel comfortable using it. I will say it this once. He does, for the context, he does refer to them both as being chinks, which is pretty fucked up. But yeah, so yeah, they start off the scene being like, oh, look at what a huge asshole this guy is, calling them all chinks. But then it's
and
like,
Charlie.
we don't know how to tell the difference between a Chinese guy and a Japanese guy ourselves. So,
oof, true is so terrible.
Right? It's like you just fucked your own point. Like, you're just as bad as the asshole who used the word chink. Like,
they should have just stuck with the gag of, like, they didn't have to pump up this scene as much. That guy could have just been a general rude jerk.
Yeah.
And the gag is that he takes the cigar that he was complaining about and sneaks it, like reverse picket pockets him, puts the cigar in his pocket, and his favorite jacket goes aflame.
I'm smoking. I'm smoking. I'm smoking. I'm smoking.
yeah.
As Mr. Miyagi Mako rides off into the sunset.
As
Mr.
he
Lee.
dies in a horrible fire in a subway.
Right? Yeah, I mean, realistically, you could light that whole person on fire that way. That's nasty, man.
I'm smoking. I'm smoking. I'm smoking. It's fucked so bad. It's awful.
I mean, the whole character from there, you can tell they're just aping Miyagi. There's a scene where it's like, oh, look at the old guy. He couldn't possibly beat us up. And then he beats up a bunch of younger guys. Like, you know.
Well, we were talking about Beau Bridges earlier, and we get to the scene where Miyagi needs to, like, clear out this gang of bikers who's like taking over his restaurant in a terrible way.
You called him Miyagi. Yeah.
But anyway, the only reason I'm bringing up this whole thing is because there's one shot of Beau Bridges underneath a table that makes this whole movie just worth it for me. I was just dying laughing at just the dynamics of that shot. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I remember he hid under the table, but I don't remember the frame you're referring to.
I'm going to take a screenshot and put it into our Skype call so you guys can see it. But as a, like, I'm a camera op for my real life job a lot of times, and something about this shot just hit me in like the best way possible. Maybe you can throw it up on your Instagram sometime, Korey.
For sure. And I'm going to set this up a little bit so Steve can complain.
Yeah.
What's new?
Mr. Lee Mako and his niece, they have like a restaurant. A lot of this movie takes place of them like hanging out in a restaurant or training, because Mr. Lee is going to train Barry in karate, martial arts, whatever.
Because that's going to fix his schizophrenia.
It's his asthma.
Asthma, right.
And when they're in the bar, to kind of show like how badass this guy like Miyagi is, it gets like taken over by a bunch of bikers. It's kind of like a smash cut. Suddenly it's full of bikers inside the restaurant.
There's no setup. It's like all of a sudden she's in the kitchen and there's bikers here.
Where's that little gal, Grub? Grub, that is the name, ain't it? Bruce.
It's a funny name.
Grub's better, ain't it, boy?
What? All right.
And they're drunk.
And they're drunk. Yeah, they just, a bunch of bikers got drunk and wandered into a Chinese restaurant. They wouldn't have found a bar or a barbecue joint or somewhere that's appealing to bikers. They wandered into this Chinese place.
What are they doing in there, Steve? Like, what is happening?
It doesn't seem like they're doing much of anything except harassing Beau Bridges. They don't even seem to want to eat.
They just came there to pick on a nerd? Like,
yeah, it's just like, let's go into this random Chinese restaurant and see if we can find someone dorky to pick on.
We're going to do something really special for you. We're going to remodel this place. Yeah, boss. Yeah. We're going to take that wall over here and put it over here. Yeah. That wall, put it back over here. And we take the kitchen, and bring it all the way in the front. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start right here.
The fuck is happening right now?
They're like hitting him, right?
Yeah, and they're like poking him and pushing him, and they're one biker. Oh, what's that dude's name?
the guy that's like actively having a heart attack.
Right? There's one of like the lead bikers.
The Michael Moore biker?
Yeah, that dude between 1988 and like 1994 must have been in 1,200 different things. And every single time, every fucking time, he either played a construction worker or a biker. I swear to God. He was almost never anything else. He had a role playing a similar character on Home Improvement for a while. Like, if I could remember his name, I'd pull up his filmography to look, but I swear to you, if you can figure out what that dude's name is and look him up on IMDb or Wikipedia, it's like 37 of the same role in a 5 or 6 year period. Honest to God. But, yeah, and then so she goes and gets, what is he, her uncle? Her grandfather or uncle? She goes and gets her uncle out of the kitchen, and this is like my one favorite bit in the film with him, even though it was a total rip of the Miyagi scene where he beats up the teenagers. So he loads up this tray full of food and he splashes rum or something, bourbon, whatever, all over himself, making himself smell like booze. So he goes out there acting like he's drunk as hell with this giant tray. I mean, huge tray, like family sized Chinese dinner. And, just starts, he makes it look like he's drunk off his ass. And, he starts spilling this food and hot like tea water and everything all over these guys, and he's burning them and scalding them, and they're going and running around and freaking out and
stepping on feet.
This is enough to chase them out of the restaurant. And I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, you know, there was a moment where it was like, well, I would have eaten all that, but
I mean, he defeats them through slapstick comedy.
He does. It's a slapstick moment, and then he uses it much like, so here's the moment where they rip off wax on, wax off. All right. Miyagi gives Daniel something that seems totally trivial to do, and then eventually explains, oh, actually, you know, this is to help, this really does have a function. It's to help you practice this movement. And Mako explains after doing this that those bikers only saw what he appeared to be, a drunken waiter, and not what he actually was, a martial arts master who's capable of scalding you with hot water. So yeah,
dude, he doesn't do shit.
He really doesn't do much.
The shit he does is he like bumps into a guy and that like knocks him out. He's like, ah, and then he like nudges a guy with his elbow and the guy like moves and like gets his head hit on a fan and like
it's kind of
weird.
He
steps on the guy's toes.
He does, yeah. It's kind of
weird. It's like a
It's
finishing move.
It's kind of weird. It's this easy to subdue a bunch of bikers. I mean, obviously they can't go as hardcore as they would in an R-rated movie meant for adults, but you think about that scene at the beginning of T2 where Arnold goes into the bar, you know, I need your boots, your jacket, your motorcycle, whatever he says, and then he gets into the fight with them and they're breaking pool cues over him and he puts a knife through one of their shoulders. Like, that's a biker fight.
Do you think Mako would have lasted in that bar?
No.
No, they would have fucked him up.
Miyagi might have, but Mako wouldn't. No. I wanted to mention real quick, Mako voiced Splinter.
Yeah.
In
2007.
2007 TMNT. And he did the role, and either the day of or the day after, because they kept it secret, that they announced that he'd done the voice, he passed away.
Yeah.
And he lived in a house up in Somas, which is pretty interesting.
Where?
Somas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just north of here. And that was just kind of sad, but it was kind of cool, even if it wasn't a great version of TMNT, that his last real role was Splinter.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I kind of like that movie. It's all right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was Michael Bay. Yeah.
No, that one wasn't the Bay one.
Oh, no, you're right. That was the other one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's all right.
You want to be martial artist. And what would be your fighting name? Barry the Leopard. No, not quite right. Barry the Tiger, who fights with courage and relies on instinct. No, that won't do. I have it. I've got it.
What? What is it?
Mr. Dumpling. Mr. Dumpling, who fights in a most deceptive manner by smashing the fists of his opponents with his own face.
But yeah, that's Mako for you. And he's kind of a fraud in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like he gives Barry, as he's training him, like these like potions to drink. And they apparently smell like raw sewage.
Here's another ripoff moment, like when Miyagi puts Daniel-san's foot in the bath after he broke it, kicking the wood post for silver.
Oh, okay. It's from 3.
From 3, yeah. It's like, okay, well then now here's a potion you can drink that might make your asthma go away.
But when he gives him this stuff. His niece asks, like, what is in this? And he's like, don't worry, it won't kill him. Like, it's clearly just some shit he put together. Like,
I think there's alcohol in there.
Right? He wants to advertise himself as being this expert in like traditional Chinese medicine. It's just like, it's a bunch of shit. I don't know, whatever.
Ancient Chinese secret, huh?
Right, yeah. It's Calgon detergent and water.
And alcohol, I guess.
Right, yeah.
I had adult onset allergies like 4 or 5 years ago and was dealing with asthma stuff. And like, we've brought this issue up with this movie a couple times now. If I had seen this movie then, I would have been so like taken aback and pretty pissed. That's like, asthma is not real. Just use these essential oils and like work harder.
Run more, Josh.
That's kind of what this movie's saying. Yeah.
My essential oils and crystals have made me the amazing person I am today.
He rubs essential oils on his chest in the hospital, and that's like for the better in the as far as the movie goes. He saved him right there.
I see, that's like, I know that, what do you call that stuff? The mentholatum? Whatever that should, the stuff you put under your nose when you're real sick, and it's supposed to help you. You don't know that you guys didn't get that?
No.
That's a real thing. You can buy it from pharmacies. I don't think people use it as much anymore. My parents were both born in the early 50s, so they got a lot of carryover practices from their parents. But yeah, it smells a lot like eucalyptus. And if you're really, really congested, you can put a little bit under your nose and it'll help clear your sinuses. And for a long time, even doctors would say it's totally fine. If you rubbed it on your chest when you had a really bad chest congestion, the vapors coming off, you'd breathe them in, and it actually would help make you feel better. And there are traditional, like, herbal equivalents to that. So there's a little bit of like, that can help. It doesn't actually cure you of anything. It just helps make you feel better. You know what I mean?
Do you think it's appropriate for Mako to come take off Barry's shirt in the hospital and rub this on his chest?
Sounds like Steve thinks it is.
No. I think if they made this movie today, they'd probably pick that out as a questionable moment. But
no, just plug these oils into the outlet there.
Right. But I know there is a lot of that kind of thing. Like, and I don't mean this as a talk shit moment, but I know there is a lot of that kind of thing in traditional Chinese medicine. It's like these packages of herbs. There's what do they call it? A poultice. There's a traditional practice. I don't think anyone uses these at all anymore, but something called the poultice, which is basically like cheesecloth with a bunch of herbs in it. And you put it on a wound, and it was meant to leach out bad stuff. They actually did have some limited function in helping avoid infection. But, not modern medicine.
Yeah, but they had like thousands of years as a civilization for Gus and Czech to come up with that
right.
stuff.
And I agree with the point you're making, but I think you do these funny things for thousands of years. Eventually, no shit, you're going to land on a few that do sort of work. It's incredible, sure. and I say this as someone who works for a pharmaceutical company. It's incredible how many modern drugs are actually derived from stuff they figured out doing that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. I still think, though, generally the theme of this movie is, I think Mako's line earlier in the film is like, we're going to see if this inhaler is a crutch or a hurdle or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's, I mean, as good as Chinese medicine can be, I don't think that's a very good sentiment for a movie for young kids.
No, I really don't think you should be encouraging kids to ditch it, because the inhaler, as you well know, does have a steroid in it that's meant to help open up the blood vessels and stuff in your lungs. So,
when I was a kid, I had asthma.
Yeah.
And I started taking taekwondo. And it was not related to this movie, but I'm going to change my own canon, my own life canon, and say I saw this movie. And then I started taking taekwondo to cure my asthma.
And how did that work? Did it?
I don't have asthma anymore.
Right. I was taking taekwondo when this movie came out, which is part of the reason why I wanted to see it.
Well, let's talk about Barry's fantasies. He has a lot of elaborate fantasies, and maybe we can talk about some of our favorites. Josh, what are some of yours?
I think the opening one that draws so many comparisons to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, in my mind, will always be the most memorable. But also the first one, I enjoyed it because it's like a cold open, and I didn't know much about this movie going in, so I was thinking that after this cold open, they're going to have to set up how Barry and Chuck Norris were like actually time traveling around being cops in different periods of history. And I thought that was the movie I was in for.
This is like a time cop.
So the reveal that it was just him dreaming in class was actually kind of refreshing. And then I'll just bookend that too and say probably my second most memorable one is that at the end he is able to lucid dream and control his dreams. So he changes the female in distress from his teacher and dad's love interest, very Freud of them, to Danica McKellar, and the way he like acts really goofy and like pulls out a rocket launcher, I thought was actually some of the strongest parts of this movie.
Now, I know the exact scene you're talking about, and yeah, I like that moment when he has that big grin on his face when he pulls like a rocket launcher out of his jacket, like a cartoon character would.
Yeah, he gets really zany.
So, Steve, I'll go on to your favorite dream that he has, but first I really want to quickly touch on, like, each dream is like a different like style. Like the beginning one is like a Japanese like ninja kind of event. The one that Josh was just describing, where they break into the warehouse, that's more like a Steven Seagal kind of action movie.
Right.
And then you have like the classic Western one as well. But anyway, go ahead, Steve. Which ones do you like or hate?
Yeah, I don't know that I really loved any of them.
Can I ask you about one of them? Because I feel like you'll know about this.
Absolutely.
One of them that Korey didn't mention, I'm pretty sure is supposed to be like Nam or Korea. And Chuck Norris's brother actually died in like, do you know anything about that? And like, isn't it kind of weird that he would then play for goofs kind of Vietnam War scene? I don't know.
It is a little strange. I don't know if it was meant to be any kind of an homage at all. I mean, considering his other brother was directing, I wouldn't be surprised if there was meant to be something there. I always kind of took it as being just a knockoff on a Rambo film. I can't even remember which Rambo it was, but the 3, 4. There is one where he's in. I mean, I know one of the newer ones. He's in like Thailand as well. But one of the early ones was also in Southeast Asia, and he went in to try to rescue somebody from basically a POW camp.
I think that might be 2, which actually has Maureen Chen from this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, those kinds of action films were just it. Between like 1985 and 1992, 93-ish, that was the way those kinds of action movies got made. I mean, the Steven Seagal movies were all basically the same. You know.
And Chuck Norris was in another movie similar to that scene they recreated in this one, where he comes out of the water and he's just like, he doesn't do much. He's just standing there firing a machine gun for like 10 minutes.
That moment was super prevalent. Dude wearing a green vest and a bandana suddenly comes up from the water and starts firing off an AK-47 like it wouldn't be flooded with water and completely useless. You can tell when the people making the movie were actually paying attention to anything Vietnam era, because the soldiers had to make sure the guns were always held above the water to keep them from getting waterlogged. And in fact, a lot of the times if they were worried they couldn't avoid it, they'd wrap their weapon in basically a plastic bag to keep the water out of it. So
plus they jammed from mud a lot.
Yeah, exactly. That was a really tough environment for them to be using weapons in. And this is not me justifying the Vietnam War. It's just a technical point.
Steve Burns over here.
Right. But yeah. So like, you know, that was such a ridiculous thing. It's like you've been swimming around in muddy swamp water with this gun and it'll just work when you come out.
In that like Vietnam-ish one, the Joe Piscopo is the villain, as he often is. Sometimes it's Piscopo, sometimes it's the coach from his gym class. But Piscopo is like total like yellow face in that moment.
Yeah.
Bring the gunpowder! Well, now I teach you lesson! Shut up, I blow you up now. Peace.
Yeah, there are definitely some things about this movie I don't think would fly now. They would definitely be referred to as problematic. You know?
He's got like the Ho Chi Minh beard.
Right?
And he's like talking with an accent.
You know, I mean, it's not the worst I've ever seen in this. I can think of the worst I've ever seen in this example. But yeah, I mean, the whole like blackface, yellowface type thing is just, it is kind of in bad taste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to say, Steve.
Yeah. You know, maybe just avoid it. Especially it's 1992 already. You probably didn't need to do that. But
my favorite one is the one that Josh touched on a little bit, which is like the Steven Seagal kind of like show up there with a trench coat and shotguns, and you got a mullet. They both have mullets in that scene, which is great. Chuck
the
Norris.
mullet haircuts are the best.
So good. And they just like blow the place up. It's like a drug lab, and Joe Piscopo is really over the top in that moment. I mean, he's always over the top in this movie, but it's pretty great right there too.
More crushed razor blades in this bubble gum! More acid rain in these jawbreakers! Yes! Dynamite in the piñatas! Where's that girl? Bring me What is the problem?
She won't talk. I thought she was smart.
Well, you know what to do, so do it.
My pleasure.
No.
There's an unbearable scene though where he's like being a conductor and like
I
it
like
is
that.
crazy this made the final cut. I can't believe that's in this movie. It's so weird and it hangs on him for like 30 seconds. And what is he doing, Korey?
He's directing people to make drugs and put dynamite in piñatas.
Yeah.
And razor blades and apples or whatever the fuck.
It's like conducting.
What's the function of his pointing? What's
comedy, bro? It's pure comedy. And then Spike rolls by. Wasn't that Spike? I don't know.
Oh my god, what a moment.
So that's like probably the part that sticks with me the most. Is that I don't know.
Wasn't that Spike?
I don't know.
There's a Thomas Harris book. Thomas Harris also wrote The Silence of the Lambs. There's a Thomas Harris book, Red Dragon. It actually takes place before The Silence of the Lambs. It's been made into a movie twice.
Manhunter.
Yeah, Manhunter was the original one. And Manhunter came out late 80s. I can't remember exactly what year. 88, 89. It would have already been out. And there's a moment in that story where a journalist gets tied to a wheelchair, set on fire, and basically rolled down a hill.
Yeah.
And I always kind of wondered if somebody who'd been working on this had seen that and was like, oh yeah, we could take a joke out of that.
I had the exact same thought. It's a very chilling moment
It
in
is.
both of those movies, actually. But
Yeah.
Well, I think that if you like the bad guys in Mandy, if you guys remember that movie with
Yeah.
Nick Cage.
They're like monster guys.
Yeah, if you could supplant like that kind of actual creepiness into the scene, I think it could have been pretty effective. Because I think some of his dreams, like I love that some of his dreams are really goofy, and we talked about that. But I think some of them could have gone like really dark. And I get that this movie goes out of its way time and time again to not be violent, not be morbid, not be dark. But it could have been so much better.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, even scenes where like they're shooting people, but you never, not that I needed to, but you never see any blood. You never see any actual gunshot wounds. They don't even really use squibs. It's always just like the implication this person got shot. It definitely felt like they were directing it to make sure that it just wouldn't really verge on anything other than cartoony violence, which is, I guess, fine. But I agree with you, Josh. And like, I guess it just shows you how fucked up I am in the head. But like when I have dreams, which is rare, but when I have dreams where I'm being like attacked or chased by people, they're never like goofball, like, oh, I'm bouncing around and here's my secret in-coat rocket launcher. They're always like, these people are trying to murder me. And it's horrible. Like, so like, I think, you know, having like a dark version of it would have been much more like, yeah, I can see that.
Steve's Night Terrors.
Yeah, like I don't get those often, but once or twice a year, I get a real nasty one. It's just like, fuck, what's wrong with me? Ugh.
I like talking about dreams and reading about lucid dreaming and like how people are able to do that and stuff. And I like that we're talking about that too, but Barry and Waco Barry and Miyagi have this like terrible discussion about dreams. And I wrote down actually what Miyagi says. This is his actual quote. Dreams are good. You must learn to control them. When you learn to control them, you will have fewer dreams then, but they will be richer ones. And then this is the real kicker. The dream world is where the child lives. Growing older would not mean growing wiser if that world did not exist. What is he talking about?
Well, I like Barry's response. Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Mr. Lee?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever, dream?
Oh, yes.
Not, just at night.
Oh, you mean dreaming when you're awake?
I mean, it's kind of like I'm off someplace or we're having an adventure with...
With him?
Yeah.
Dreams are good.
Even when you're walking down a hallway or sitting in a classroom. I like him and all that, but, I mean, is it normal for that to happen?
You must learn to control them. When you learn to control them, you will have fewer dreams then. But they will be richer ones.
Is that the way it's supposed to be?
The A dream world is where the child lives. Growing older would not mean growing wiser if that world did not exist.
How did you learn so much?
Television.
I agree with you, Josh. At the same time, my one little secondary note, just about that second part of it, like, kind of does underline what I was, in my opinion, underline what I was saying earlier, where, like, Barry's basically a teenage child. Like, he's still having these imaginary friend daydreams. You know, it's one thing to, as a teenager, occasionally, like, fantasize about being the hero. I think that's what's fun for kids about comic books, for instance, is, like, you can fantasize a little bit about being the hero. But, like, if you're that age and you're still like, oh, yeah, me and Chucky go on adventures, and I burst out having conversations with my imaginary friend Chuck Norris while I'm in class, like
Chucky,
right?
Chucky,
right? Chucky. I think maybe Mako's trying to like phrase it softly and just be like, "Yo, you're too old for this shit." Like, it's all right for you to have aspirations; those types of dreams are fine. But like, you're too old to be sitting in class having out loud daydreams about beating people up with Chuck Norris.
He's just trying to be wise.
But I don't know if that's true. I think he taught him to use his dreams, like in the last sequence where he's in the nunchucks and he zips in his mind back to that initial scene of him being a ninja wearing all white. And he like uses that to like, one kid was like jumping for joy. He was so inspired by that nunchuck performance.
So no, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I'm asking, like, so you think it was a catharsis thing? Or Mako was like, if you learn to control this, you can not only keep yourself from doing it when it's inappropriate, but you'll find it more fulfilling when you do it?
I guess. I just don't know what...
It does seem kind of like open to interpretation. I think you're ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, that part of your point here is that it's kind of a pointless, gray area, ambiguous type of thing to have said anyway.
I just think there's a lot of also other way more interesting things you could say about dreams, and the lines that they wrote for him just kind of, he's saying like it's good but it's bad.
Yeah,
maybe, but maybe not.
Like, what are you
is kind of what he's saying.
So I'm gonna say something that's like totally off topic for a sec. When I was a kid, when I was like 5 or 6, I was obsessed with knowing Oscar the Grouch's like trash can, like what's inside when he goes down.
That's an interesting one.
So I had a dream once that I was in Sesame Street and I opened his can and I went in.
Whoa.
And like it was like a whole fucking world under there. But then I woke up before I got to explore it. And like for years of my life, I'm talking like 10, 15 years, I was trying to rehab that dream again.
Dude, you know, it was never specific to Oscar, but for years when I was growing up, like I'm serious, 5, 6 years, if not more, I had a recurring dream about a very small doorway that led into a very massive place, and I'd go wandering around in it. And like, I only remember bits and pieces of it, but it's for, I think kids think
like,
that
it's
way.
like an Alice in Wonderland thing.
Yeah,
like.
exactly. It was just this, like, and even when I would wake up and remember, I'm like, oh, that's neat. Like a little tiny door, but it goes to this giant, yeah.
That's weird. One of my first dreams, like whenever in my mind, I'm like, oh, that was like one of my first dreams I can ever remember. It's me touching like a side table and like touching it enacted like me to be in a different world where everything was kind of Mario and super big. God, it's almost like that same kind of weird. You know what I would say? The dream world is where the child lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're
but
just
growing older
point.
would not mean growing wiser if that world did not exist.
Right?
Is this the way it's supposed to be?
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's so strange how like not only is it common to everybody, but there are certain like weird strings that you'll find that like almost everybody as a kid had this thing or that thing incorporated into a dream somehow. Just shows you how similar we all are.
You know who's similar to me? Cellini.
You're definitely Cellini. No, you're the one from the next Karate Kid, aren't you?
Oh, what's his fucking name? Gus or something?
Yeah, something like that. That's definitely you, Korey.
No, I'm Cellini. Lauren doesn't like you. She pities you.
You're right.
Josh, where the movie kind of builds toward Cellini and Barry, and they're like, what's their deal, Josh?
Well, first of all, I'm ticked because they were supposed to fight at the tournament at the end, and they don't fight, so I don't get it at all. But Cellini is like the jock who beats up the nerd at school.
You gotta watch where you're going, creep. accidents happen when you don't pay attention.
Let me up.
Well, if I let you up, then you might hurt me. And I don't want you to hurt me. What's lucky for you, Master Stone didn't take you on. Because I'm in that class, and I'd be doing this to you every day. Oh, look at this. So where's your friend Chucky now, retard? Oh, by the way, Lauren doesn't like you. She pities you.
I guess there is kind of an arc here, Steve, because at the beginning of the movie, he's just the jock and Barry is just the nerd. But by the end, they're both jocks.
Oh.
I think that, like, he is just the douchebag at every corner in this movie. He likes to put his foot on Barry's chest because Barry has a hard time breathing. So that's like a pretty cool thing he does. He says he's going to kiss Danica on the lips after he breaks his arm or something at the end.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to break your fucking arm and then kiss her on the lips.
He's the kind of guy who has the gall to like walk over to you in front of the girl and be like, hey, it's weird that you're together because you're way too good for him.
Well, it's like, yo, dude, she's expressed disinterest in you multiple times already at this point. Like, what makes you think she's going to make out with you?
She should have just responded that I just like Barry as a friend. I made that clear to him earlier in the movie.
Right?
I ain't into either of you guys.
Yeah, he's like a sociopath. That kid's just a dick to be a dick.
Yeah. So essentially, like, they kind of like face off a little bit. And Cellini challenges Barry. He says, all right, you want to fuck with me? Karate tournament, bitch. Just like the movie Karate Kid. So they're going to face off in a tournament. But like Josh said, they actually don't face each other.
Yeah, they
like,
never actually
directly.
fight.
They don't fight.
And there's no real payoff with Norris either. They need an extra team member. So this is where Chuck Norris really actually gets introduced to the movie. Is they meet him at the tournament and he agrees to become a member of their team. And there's almost no real usage of him other than that what is supposed to be the big payoff where he beats up Piscopo's character. And that scene's kind of boring.
What about the camera move where it's like flipping him around and it's like a close up on his face?
Right?
That is awful.
It is awful.
The only good part about that is when it ends and the freeze frame on his face, the extreme close up, and he just like looks sweaty and gross, and he goes, "That hurt."
That is very 90s humor right there.
Yeah, it's
Ouch.
definitely slapstick.
Or like if you get hit in the balls and you go like, "Oh, mama," or something like that, you know?
Right?
How many ball shots were in this movie? I think we at least got 3 or 4 solid ball shots.
Well, there's some good training montages here. At some point, Barry gets nunchucks and he like hits himself in the balls. First thing he does, tries a trick, hits himself in the balls.
It's always nunchucks. It's just like, why? Why is it always nunchucks?
Next time, I'll use mustard.
When he first gives him the nunchucks, Barry's like, wow, these look deadly. And Mako's reaction is just, they are weapons.
They look deadly.
It is true, they are weapons. But you must realize that the greatest weapon you ever possess is self-control.
Yeah, and also he should. I know this is me being over detailed about it and overthinking things, but like they don't give kids regular nunchucks to learn with. They give them ones. They still hurt like a son of a bitch, but they give them these ones that are like padded. The handles are padded. They're not solid wood. They don't use a metal chain. There's usually something else used to connect them. They behave just like real nunchucks. They're meant to train you to use real nunchucks, but the whole idea is if you fuck up and crack yourself in the head, you don't hurt yourself nearly as badly with them.
Yeah,
Right.
when you start learning how to juggle, you start with like feathers and pillows and tennis balls. You don't just start off with the sharp knives and the flame torches.
And, like,
Chainsaws.
those things are absolutely hard enough that if you crack yourself in the face, you could break a cheekbone, you could break your nose, you could put a crack in your forehead. Like, you don't give a teenager who's never handled nunchucks before real nunchucks. That's ridiculous.
Mako gives into him and he says, "You're going to train with these every day now. If you fuck up, they will sting you."
Okay, on top of which, who's going to show him how to do that?
Right.
And you just like, he's just going to learn by practicing? No.
He's like, watch Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, watch Secret of the Ooze, you'll be fine. Watch a TMNT movie, you'll be good. And then, of course, at the end when there's the payoff, Jonathan Brandis, I guess, must have learned to at least do the basic twirl himself because there's a shot of him doing that. But then they immediately transition to him, in quotations, in the white ninja suit.
Stunt double, yeah.
Stunt double, yeah. So it's like what they did is they hired somebody who actually knew how to use nunchucks.
Somebody who was pretty good.
Yeah, the stunt doubles were great. Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess that's like Josh said, like that's like his fantasy come full circle or something. Like he can now use the fantasies to his advantage to overcome his nerves or something.
It's all such bullshit.
Well, he had closure with Chuck Norris, like one last time ghost Chuck Norris at the very end, which the ending makes me give this movie, like if this was spoilers, it'd be a yes just because of how great the ending is.
I want to say at the tournament, they do get Chuck Norris on their team because they need 4 people on the team to compete, and they didn't know that. So they just show up. It's Maureen, Mr. Lee, and it's Barry. But they did no research. They didn't read the pamphlet or whatever. Like, they just show up. But the guy at the front desk...
Oh, my gosh.
That fucking guy.
And who's your fourth?
Oh, we don't have one. We wanted to compete as a 3-person team.
No. It's a team competition, and you have to have a complete team, which is 4 people. So, you're just going to have to find another team member. Thanks so much. Step aside. Application, please. Morning.
Is he doing a David Spade? What's he doing here?
I don't know who he's channeling, but he is the fucking worst. Like, he's stuck with me my whole life. Like, I know that guy's face. I can think of it on any given day at any given time.
Yeah.
Ask me about the guy at the front desk from the karate tournament and Sidekicks. Not that anyone has, but I could picture the guy.
Could you imagine how much of a nightmare he'd be in real life to run into that guy at the front of a line? Terrible.
Like, you get to the airport, like you're like 5 minutes away or whatever, like your plane's gonna take off and he's the guy.
I don't think so.
No. Chuck Norris. It's supposed to be like a funny moment, I guess. Like, Chuck Norris shows up and he's like, yeah, I am their 4th team member. And he's like, okay.
This is a little joke here.
What?
Oh, come on, Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris.
You got a problem with that, son?
No.
When, like, how fucking unfair is that? All these other teams showed up. The other teams are all from regular dojos. And the members of those teams are just the students at the dojo, maybe occasionally the teacher, and the teacher's likely to be pretty good, but like Chuck Norris is here to watch. He's a spectator, and they run up and they grab him. It doesn't strike Norris even for a moment that it might be slightly unfair to have him at a tournament that's obviously designed for like local Houston area dojos and their teachers. Like, it's very low likelihood most of these guys are going to be good enough to beat Chuck Norris. Yeah.
I thought it made it seem like the tournament was a little bigger than that, like almost like a Texas-wide thing.
Okay, and I can go with that. Maybe it's Texas State. Maybe it's even a Southern U.S. national championship. That makes it even worse. It's like, the rest of these teams don't have like celebrity martial artists. It's not like, okay, well, this team gets Van Damme, and this team gets Seagal, and these guys get Jet Li, and that
no one
team
wants
gets
Seagal. Like, they're trading.
Dude, okay,
It's like the low draft pick.
Speaking of, because it's an opportunity, and I love telling the story. I want to tell the story for a minute. Seagal is so fucking full of shit. That guy is such a giant goddamn gas bag. He spent years talking shit about Van Damme. Now, you say whatever you want about Van Damme. Van Damme is a ridiculous human being. I will never deny that.
Drug addict
For at least part of his life. Had affairs behind his wife's back, was difficult to work with. And I know that secondhand because again, I know people who worked with, I literally know people who worked with him. The guy, I'm not going to say he was the best in the world or anything like that, but he was a legitimate martial artist. He was good at it. He did compete in Europe. He did win in competitions. He proved that he knew what he was doing. Everyone agreed he was very physically adept. Even the people I know who worked with him who had terrible stories about him as a person would admit to you he was a very physically adept martial artist. But Seagal spent years talking shit about him and basically claiming that he wasn't a thing and that it was all an act and that he didn't really know martial arts, that he was full of shit. At one point in an interview, I think it was on, what was his name? The African-American talk show host who was
Arsenio.
Arsenio, thank you. On an episode, I think it was on an episode of Arsenio, during the early 90s where Arsenio basically brought this up and said, Van Damme has won championships, and Seagal's response was basically those weren't actual championships.
Like they were rigged.
They
is
were
what he's
rigged,
saying?
or they were fake, or they were bullshit. They were full of 12-year-olds, and Van Damme didn't really have to fight anybody to win them. Stuff
He's
like
one
that.
to talk.
Exactly.
It was like a regional Texas championship. Those are the championships he won.
Right? So Sylvester Stallone later told a story, and apparently other people have backed this up, that Stallone, or someone in his crew, I think it was Stallone, was throwing a party at his house, and a bunch of the action stars from the era were invited. This was late 80s or early 90s, when they're all at their fucking, peak. Seagal showed up at the party first, and went on his normal rant talking shit about Van Damme, and from Stallone's mouth, I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but from Stallone's mouth, everyone there knew Van Damme would kick the shit out of him. Stallone said that. And, so apparently at some point somebody suggested, Van Damme's going to be here tonight at this party with you physically. He'll be in the same place. We think you should prove it. So because Seagal's whole thing was
Stallone probably has like a boxing ring in his place, right?
Oh yeah, I would bet he would. Yeah, absolutely. And
he could ref.
He could ref for some, and look, you got a bunch of people there. No one's going to let anyone die. They just want to see who's really going to win.
They can wear like the gloves or whatever.
Yeah. And people basically said, Van Damme's going to be here. We think you should either put up or shut the fuck up. Because you've spent all this time talking shit about him. He's not a real martial artist, and he's not a real tough guy, and you could kick the shit out of him, and blah, blah, blah. So let's put up. Well, conveniently, Seagal, at the moment they found out Van Damme was arriving, suddenly had somewhere to go. And he takes off. The way Stallone tells this story, Seagal couldn't get out of there quickly enough when he found out that Van Damme was showing up. And apparently Van Damme went off after finding out that Seagal had run away. And Van Damme got a car and found Seagal at a nightclub somewhere and basically got in his face and said, you fucking prove it. I'll do it here in public. I will ruin my career to beat the shit out of you while people watch so we can prove what's actually going on. And Seagal basically just ran away from the whole thing.
I love that. That is amazing.
Right? And I don't remember exactly the right search terms, but in order to back this all up, there is absolutely at least one YouTube video of Sylvester Stallone telling this story himself. And if you look around enough, it wouldn't take you long to find it.
Somebody needs to make like a recreation, drunk history style video of this whole occurrence. It would be so funny. Like all of the big action stars, like Arnold's in the background, like, put your money.
Right.
Like,
and I think they were all there. I think Bruce Willis was there. I think Schwarzenegger was there. I think a lot of
the whole cast of the Expendables was there.
Like everybody was an action
Ivan
star.
Drago.
And they all just say their taglines all the time in real life too.
Dude, Drago, why am I blanking on his name now?
Just call him Drago.
Drago, in real life, I'm sure he would have kicked the shit out of people. That dude was massive.
Yeah, he's another champion, karate champion.
Yeah. And I believe he's also got like a PhD in biology or something. That dude's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, he's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
He has to have like a PhD or something like that.
It's crazy.
Could you imagine, though, being Steven Seagal in that situation, just looking around the room at all these humongous guys, like, goading you on? Such a weird...
Right?
I don't want to bash the guy too much, but isn't Seagal kind of, like, known to be the actual fraud? Like,
yeah, I mean, there is video footage of while Seagal was living in Japan, and he's got this whole story about training with a guy who was an Aikido master and being a teacher at the dojo and winning a bunch of competitions, but over the years... a lot of people have picked out stuff that Seagal has claimed about himself as either being exaggerated or unprovable or definitely a lie. I think there's even a blurb on the Wikipedia page about Seagal, about things people have called him out on. And yeah, a lot of what he claims about himself is really questionable.
Well, isn't even like the running joke, the SNL, we've talked about Saturday Night Live a couple times today, but like the running joke on SNL with Steven Seagal was that he just breaks everyone's neck in like every movie he's in. So like to me that kind of is saying tongue in cheek like this is his big move. Like it's not really a physical feat to do this in a movie.
No, absolutely. In fact, not SNL but Mad TV, Will Sasso for an episode of Mad TV did a bit where he was playing a knockoff on Seagal and it's hilarious.
Yeah,
it's really
another one.
Right.
That is good. He's all squinty eyed.
Yes. He's got the wig on with the ponytail.
I just want to say, we don't know for sure about Seagal being. I mean, we're just
it's all speculation.
Don't sue me, is what I'm saying. Here.
But I mean, this
because he would.
Probably would. But you know, a lot of this, I'm not pulling it out of my butt. A lot of this is corroborated on the internet. You Google a little bit, even Wikipedia, you'll find most of this information.
We're just reciting things we've read online.
Yeah.
Not making our own claims.
Right.
For legal
not
reasons.
An original claim. Yeah.
Anyway, Sidekicks. The tournament is going down. Marine does like a little I don't know, what is it, a kata? Is that what it's called, Steve?
The kata or the movements of the art itself. I think what she's doing is supposed to be Tai Chi, but that basically is a type of kata. Yeah.
And then Mr. Lee is breaking bricks in an apron, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was kind of fun where he comes in. I mean, again, it's a total knockoff Mr. Miyagi moment, but it was fun. I liked it.
Miyagi's way better than this guy.
I thought it was so lame, though, how he had to go back home for a while. And, it wasn't even, a payoff till way later. It's just, the next scene, he was kind of late.
He had to go back to run the restaurant. But then he reappears at the tournament. It's like, you went and opened the restaurant for 45 minutes? Did anybody eat? What did you do? You could have put a sign on the restaurant door that said, closed for family emergency, will be open tomorrow.
Yeah,
there's some more motorcycle guys in there. He had to go kick their ass.
Yeah, something. It doesn't make any sense. If you can only have the restaurant open for an hour during the entire day, just close for the day. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, we're just opening. We're an hour from closing.
Nobody can really order anything. By the time I make your food, I gotta leave.
So Barry also does a brick breaking competition after the weapons thing, which he wins or whatever. But it comes down to their dojo, the Frying Dragon Dojo, named after the restaurant, versus I don't know what Stone Dojo, I guess.
Cobra Kai.
Oh yeah, I think that's right.
So Barry has to break bricks against Cellini, who is also breaking bricks. I guess that's their form of them facing off, which is, like Josh said, major letdown. They don't fight.
There's no fight at all. You don't get that cathartic moment with the crane kick.
Yeah.
You don't get. There's no payoff where the bully finally eats it. It's just you lost now.
And I'm sorry, but breaking bricks is not a very good visual medium thing.
No, it's not.
It's kind of boring, and it's very easily to human's eye trickable, I guess. So many ways you could fake breaking bricks, and I think I don't know, the scenes are semi-believable. That's not really my qualm with it. I just think it's kind of boring that we saw 7 rounds of people breaking concrete bricks.
It's like the movie we did a podcast on, Over the Top, where it builds up to arm wrestling, and then it's very boring to watch people arm wrestle.
I mean, it's probably my favorite of Van Damme's really goofy movies. Well, I don't know,
Stallone.
Tied with Hard Target, but I'm talking Van Damme now. Bloodsport. It's the one movie I can think of where, it's not a good movie. It's a B movie, but it's the one movie where it's the breaking is actually kind of fun. They do it in such a ridiculous way. It's yeah, it's awesome.
And it's not the big payoff, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
You're right. That's
thing.
what it is. It's not the payoff. It's just a piece.
Yeah.
It's a part of the kumite.
And we're going to be doing more on Bloodsport eventually, so stay tuned, listeners. So one thing that I saw this talked about a long time ago, I think in the Nostalgia Critic video that I watched on this years ago. I didn't watch it recently, but when Barry goes to do the final break, he has to break 9 bricks or some shit. Mako comes and just lights it on fire.
Yeah, this is... first of all, no, that's not going to help. He's this will make it easier. No, it won't. And then, secondly, you're at an open tournament. They're not going to just let you light shit on fire.
But they do?
They do. Everyone just stands there and is oh, what's this old man doing? Oh, he's lighting stuff on fire. Fine. Let's see if the kid can punch through it.
That's safe.
Yeah, totally fine. In an auditorium, in a convention center full of everyone. We don't have permits or safety setups or fire extinguishers or... Yeah, it's totally fine. I'm sure the fire marshal will let us do this again next year.
Also, it's not against the rules.
Yeah, definitely not against the rules, and they shouldn't all have to do it the same way. We'll just have him do this one with the flames.
Whatever looks the most badass is allowed.
Right? Absolutely. Here, this will help. Light this on fire.
Here's the thing, too, though. I want to go back big picture, big perspective a little bit. This whole movie is about a kid who's just kind of struggling. At least the interesting maybe part of the story is that it's a kid just trying to get through high school stuff, right? And he hasn't really been a big karate guy, and we definitely haven't seen even any competition or hint of the inside of like this is what his dream is, to compete on the highest level. And the entire third act of this movie is just like a bottle piece in this like convention center in this tournament, and they just totally like lose and forget about I don't know, anything charming about, you know, this kid just being a regular gym class hero sort of stuff.
No, I mean, you're extremely right, because the only story this movie has is here's a kid that something happens to. Like, the high school part of it gets thrown out almost immediately, and you're absolutely right. Like, he never really had a dream of being a martial arts star. He had a dream of being an action star as Chuck Norris's sidekick. And he didn't really ever want to enter this competition. It was just something he did to try to prove himself to this chick he was sort of liking. Like, the movie almost has no story. And the story they set up in the first half, by the time they get to the second half, they're like, don't worry about it.
He finally gets to be sidekicks with Chuck Norris, kind of, I guess, because they compete on the same team, even though they don't do anything together.
Yeah, they do nothing together. Chuck Norris has like one mediocre fight, which is totally unfair. Like,
he doesn't even celebrate with them at the end. He's just peace out.
He's just like, well, that was cool.
He's like, I gotta go film Walker in like 2 hours.
And I gotta take my brother with me because he's directing this other garbage I'm in. Like,
don't worry, you can talk to Force Ghost me for a little bit, though.
Yeah, why don't you sit here on this bench and drool on yourself and dream about us doing something? I don't know. Like,
but Barry's arc is complete because he gives up the magazine. He leaves the magazine on the bench that has Chuck Norris on it that he's been carrying around with him the whole movie. That even got ripped in half by Cellini and he taped back up together.
Like, I mean, maybe they're a real low-income family, but you couldn't have gone to a newsstand and bought another copy of this magazine? There's nowhere you could find. I mean, come on, what's it worth? $3-4? Like,
Black Belt magazine?
Yeah, it's just a copy of Black. You can call their publication office and order a back copy of it, even if it's from 10 years ago. It's like, it's
Korey.
Where was that scene?
What do you think about this Last Jedi boy at the end, though, picking up the Chuck Norris mantle, grabbing the magazine?
Broom boy?
God.
Wheelchair boy? That's pretty cool.
Someone's going to accuse me of being ableist, I'm sure, but can a kid whose legs don't work actually do karate? Seems like kind of a stretch.
He can dream, can he?
Well, in this movie world, you can just outflex asthma, so why can't he just be tougher and get out of the wheelchair?
Oh, you know what? You're right. He just needs a soup, something to wipe on his chest and face, and a little bit of jogging, and he'll be great.
Essential oils.
Essentials, right? That's what it is. This is essential oils. They'll cure autism. They'll make you walk. Whatever you've got.
Goop.
You don't need... Look, everyone, don't wait for a COVID vaccine. Just drink some essential oils.
Drink some, like, handmade, like, real, like, Chinese potion shit. Alchemy is the way to go, I think.
I am so... Oh my God, I love it. I love alchemy. I am so concerned about these statements, though. I really actually feel genuinely like I need to state right now that I'm not being serious. Because someone's going to go drink essential oils and they'll be like, I heard it in this podcast.
Like, I'm just going to say this right now. Don't do anything we say ever.
You never. Don't ever do what I tell you.
Unless I say watch a movie.
Yeah, I mean, if it's about movies, you should listen to me.
But they're all about movies, Steve.
Okay, well then fine. Listen to me about that stuff.
This is like the third time you've backtracked for legal reasons on this pod so far, man. Take it easy, pal.
Look, man, my lawyer has been on my ass, okay?
Right? You don't know how many times I've been sued, Josh.
Well, that's Sidekicks. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we get into ratings?
It's my final thought.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this, but the file you gave me to watch this, it was really crazy. Like, I couldn't get the audio to work in QuickTime. I had to like take it into my own video software and like move the audio to the side because it wasn't lined up right.
I'm not trying to be shitty, man. I am the world's biggest Apple fan. I still have machines at home right now running that operate on OS 9. But are you seriously still running QuickTime? You couldn't have found VLC or anything?
Listen, it didn't work in QuickTime, so I went straight to Premiere. Like,
I love that your next step is Premiere. You go right for the editing software. Oh,
I wanted to see if this audio had any waveforms, but you're right. Actually, I'll be honest. If we're going to talk about VLC, it has been crashing like a mofo lately for the last like year. Every time I open that thing.
No, you're not wrong. The something about the most recent patches seem to have screwed it up. But yeah,
there's some like huge VLC fans out there.
Anyway, this movie is hard to watch. I think is what Josh is saying.
You know, he's right. And I will make a note of that. Also, we talked about this already, Korey, that like there is no such thing as a decent home video copy of this movie. Like, there are 2 DVDs floating around. One of the 2 of them is absolutely just a bootleg of the old VHS.
So it's just transferred VHS?
Yeah, it's literally just somebody copied an old VHS tape and then used a computer to dump it on it. And they're selling it in a very convincing looking fake package. So people have, because I found reviews on places like Amazon that people that bought them thinking it was a real DVD, and they're like, no, this is just a VHS copy on a disc. Like, there are no widescreen copies of this. I told you, I'll tell the audience, I got so desperate to see if there was any better way to watch this than the garbage upload that's on YouTube, that I actually went to see if there was a decent Laserdisc copy, and there isn't. like, it's crazy.
Yeah, this movie, you can't stream it on Amazon Prime. It's not on Netflix, not on Hulu. It's not on any streaming service whatsoever. There are bootleg versions on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or you could torrent a shitty version if you are so inclined.
That was the most surprising part of all. I mean, YouTube movies, Amazon, Netflix, Vudu, there isn't a single service out there where you can stream this.
It's forgotten in time.
Yeah.
Let's just say I would have been happy to pay a couple bucks to rent this like early 90s schlocky thing, but
me too.
I wasn't able to.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have loved spending the money, but for $2 or $3, if I could have at least watched it in widescreen, okay.
Decent quality, yeah.
Decent quality, yeah.
Lips matching with the mouth, and like it was so bad I would like have to line it up, and then I'd watch for 20 minutes and I'd have to like reline up the audio again.
Oh my god.
I'm so sorry, Josh. I ended up watching one of the YouTube versions, which didn't look as good, but sounded better. So
it's okay. There's a good opportunity to get hacked on for using QuickTime, deservedly.
No, I mean, I still use it too in some of my old machines. It's been a long time since I've heard anybody talk about using QuickTime.
Josh, they was hacking on me.
Exactly. Steve's hacking on me. Come on,
hey
dude,
man,
Steve.
I was shopping yesterday for parts for a G4, so I feel ya.
Can I just say one other random note before we go into the end here?
Of course.
You did a podcast with Pappy, and you guys talked about Steve McDermott and a lot of his romantic comedy roles, and you never once mentioned Young Guns, and I like about threw my phone out the window. Like, it was terrible.
Oh, wow.
You know, you're right. Young Guns does reserve some respect. It's one of the 2 best things Emilio Estevez was ever in. And I'm not including Mighty Ducks in that statement, by the way.
No,
the other
of
one's
course.
Repo Man.
I was going to say Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, Maximum Overdrive. Oh, that's
Repo
a
Man would be
movie.
fun movie to talk about, actually.
It would be. We actually watched that movie for a film class when I was in college. It's a good movie. I mean, it's also goofy, but yeah.
I really love Young Guns. You don't know this,
It's a good
Steve,
one.
but there's a lot of like dissenting opinions on the other podcast that me and Josh are on. Spoilers, check it out. About Young Guns. Like, some of the people there are really, really against that movie.
I mean, I guess I could see not being into the second one, but I think the first one's a lot of fun. I kind of enjoy both of them, to be honest.
Me too.
Yeah. And
If
they
you
are
guys-
what they are.
Yeah. I would love to talk about Young Guns with you guys someday.
Let's do it. I'd be happy to review those movies.
Same. Absolutely. We'll do them proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go into ratings. Josh, you are up first, my friend. On any rating scale you want, what are you going to give Sidekicks?
I'll give Sidekicks maybe a 3.5 rolled up Chuck Norris magazines out of 10 rolled up Chuck Norris magazines. I think that it had some just parts that made me laugh out loud. I think it's one of those movies that it's really bad, so I feel like you can learn a lot of like filmy type stuff from it, like where it missed. And this movie also gave me Beau Bridges underneath a table at a restaurant. And if there's any way we can gif this scene of him going from above the table to below the table
On all fours, yeah.
It's so funny. He kind of looks like Rick Moranis in it.
He does.
Anyway, like it's an all-out terrible movie. I wish I had seen this as a kid because I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more then. And I think too, like we said, if somehow they were ever to remake this and still like use Chuck Norris, I think you actually could have an entertaining film if you let it get a little dark sometimes, and if you don't try to play Chuck Norris so straight the entire time. I think there's a lot of humor maybe missed out on Chuck Norris like popping out of the water. Like maybe they could have played that up a little bit more. It's like so corny and hilarious. Like Just like a little smidge more could have really made a big difference. But anyway, that is my rating, 3.5 out of 10.
All right, I'm going to go next. And I'm going to go a little bit nicer. I'm going to go 6 out of 10.
Wow.
Asthma-induced hallucinations. I actually do like this movie quite a bit, even though it's stupid and it's awful and it's hard to watch because the quality is horrible because you have to watch it bootleg because there's no legal way to watch this movie. I still do like it because it's kind of so bad it's good in a way. Now, I know I say that a lot on this podcast. When I'm not absolutely shitting on something, I'm saying it's so bad it's good. Those are my two opinions. It's either awful or it's so awful that it's good. And this is the latter. I do like this movie just because it's silly, it's fun, it's 90s. You got Chuck Norris. It's not my favorite Chuck Norris movie. That is Expendables.
Favorite Chuck Norris movie.
That is Expendables 2, which is hilarious and awful and also so bad it's good. Way more over the top than this. But I don't know. I like Jonathan Brandis. He holds a special place in my heart from when I was a kid. And even though it's pretty much a Karate Kid ripoff, it, I don't know, goes some interesting places. That scene where he's imagining them in like the Seagal movie and that little like Silvestri stupid score is playing, and I don't know. It just makes me happy. What can I say other than that? Steve, why don't you go ahead?
I'm going to rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10 Texas Rangers. And oh man, I'm struggling here.
That's not even fair because 1 Texas Ranger is like enough.
Right?
Like 1 is a really good rating.
Which is why I'm going to give it a 1. I mean, you know what? I'm going to up it to a 2. I'm going to give it a 2 because I feel bad about Brandis, but like, and I kind of like Mako.
You pity me.
You pity me. I do. I pity you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Chalini was right. You pity me.
Yeah, it's fucking. It's just.
I get it. Okay.
Most of it is a rip-off of other movies. It's unoriginal. It's shallow. There's nothing particularly good about the way it's written. It was produced like it was a after-school TV special made for NBC in 1992. There's no real payoff at the end. He never really has a fight with the bad guy. Chuck Norris doesn't actually appear in the movie as himself until like the last 35 minutes and then doesn't really get used for much of anything. I don't feel like these characters had any real arc. The Danica McKellar character went from pitying him to being sort of interested in him for no good reason over an almost non-existent period of time.
Guilt.
Yeah, guilt, I guess.
She watched him fight.
Yeah, I guess that's what he does. He cried once, and then she saw him enter a karate tournament. It's like, oh, now I'm interested.
Hello.
Yeah, right? Hello. I mean, look, when I was 9 and I saw it in the theater, I probably would have given you at least a somewhat better review than this. I didn't leave the theater being mad at it, but yeah, the Karate Kid I'll never get sick of. This I may never watch again. I don't know. Not a real special experience.
You'll watch it again because you feel bad for Bandis.
Right.
I want to do one other quick thing here. I'll start with you, Josh. If you could give a message to one actor in this movie, still alive, if they happen to come across this podcast, what do you have to say to that person?
Whoa. This is weird. Wait, if they're still alive, or it has to be to someone still alive?
It has to be to an actor in this movie that's still alive.
That leaves Joe Piscopo, Beau Bridges, and the woman that played the teacher.
And Chuck Norris.
Oh, yeah, and Chuck Norris.
I would say, Chuck Norris, please don't die during this time. America needs you. Stay alive for us.
You heard it here, Chuck. Steve, you go.
Mine would also be to Chuck. It's, please stop making movies and television shows.
Oh my gosh.
That's messed up, man.
Focus more on staying alive is what Steve is.
He might listen to this whole podcast and then get to that point and just be like, fuck these guys.
I mean it. Any work you get offered, send it to Van Damme.
No. I don't agree. My message is to Danica McKellar.
You're still pretty, Danica.
My message is that my friend Steve here is single.
Yeah.
So check him out.
I do like smart women.
It's true. All right. Josh, you have a podcast. Why don't you tell our listeners about that and where they can find you?
Sure. I would love it if people that listen to this podcasts also listen to Spoilers podcast because I think they go together really well. We talk about movies or funny stuff. But yeah, it's Podcast Spoilers is our Instagram. So that's the one I'll push this time, Corey.
It is one of the internet's great podcasts that isn't this one.
Yeah, top 2. They're both top 2 podcasts.
Josh, I just want to say, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, all you got to do is ask, Chuck.
Thank you.
This definitely isn't weird.
Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to write in, you can email us at bigdumbmovie@gmail.com. Our Instagram is Big Dumb Movie Podcast. You can send us an email, ask us to review a movie. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, but I really want to. So maybe we will. I'm going to go with that one. I'm actually reinforce that.
I don't really want that.
Leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts and give this video a thumbs up and leave us a nice comment. Not a bad one. Or I guess you could do a bad one. That's fine too.
It's about me. I really don't care.
In 9 months, we'll read off the comments again.
Right. After my next kid.
Thank you guys very much for listening. We love you, and good night.
Good night.
fulfillments a man like me can have. Just the absence of humanity is a fulfillment so graceful that even God would understand if he invented them. He'd probably do.